This is the cheap adventure to Ivano-Frankivsk in Ukraine. So then I took Ryanair over to Lviv and the flights cost just £5 each way. That is proper cheap. So along I go to Lviv Central Station where I get on the train to Ivano-Frankivsk. And let's take a look at what trains there are at Lviv Central Station. One thing I love about Ukraine is the really old trains you get here, such as these really old loco pulled trains. Also at this station are the ER2 passenger trains, and here we can see both styles of ER2. So, what train am I getting on? Well, disappointingly, it was this one. A bit of a modern, boring looking train for Ukraine. And this train went painfully slowly. Most of the journey was at 30 miles an hour, and it took 3 hours to get from Lviv to Ivano-Frankivsk. That is really slow. In a couple of places the train did speed up a bit faster. At one point it actually got to 60 miles an hour, but only very briefly. Then it slowed straight back down again to 30 miles an hour. I just don't know why the trains are run so slow here. And here's the train accelerating out of the station en route. And here I am arriving into Ivano-Frankivsk. And let's take a look at the train station. And now let's take a look around the town centre and see what lifts we can find. First we go into this building, and this building has a Soviet classic lift, and the motor on this lift sounded in very bad condition. And typically Soviet lifts often have more buttons than they have floors. But this one's taking it to an extreme, as it's got buttons for 10 floors, yet this lift only serves 4 floors. And looking around the streets in this city, there's loads of really old, battered cars. And people here don't have old cars because they're making a choice to run a classic old vehicle. They just use old cars because that's the cheapest thing they can get. And now we go to the next building. This building has an Otis Gen 2 lift. But what's really weird is this lift only serves turns of the stairwell. It doesn't even go down all the way to the ground floor. And up on the upper floor, again, the lift serving turns in the stairwell, meaning that this lift is pretty useless for people in wheelchairs. And now along to a fountain, which sadly wasn't working, and into the next building, which used to have an old Soviet lift. And you see it's in the old Soviet lift shaft, but a building's been quite heavily modernised, and lift's sadly been replaced with a load of cheap rubbish, and disappointingly, the lift is not glass. So then we carry on looking around Ivano-Frankivsk, and there's loads of old cars wherever you look. And along to some Soviet tower blocks. Now, I've not seen this particular design of Soviet block before. It's got concrete panels. Now, I'm not sure if it's an LPS block where the concrete panels are the main structural support, or if this is a more typical concrete block with just panels put on the outside. I can't tell. And to match the Soviet block, there's some Soviet cars outside of it, and on the inside, it's got a nice old Soviet lift. Go to the Soviet block next to this one, which is a more typical sort of brick Soviet block. And why is it every brick Soviet block I've ever seen, the brickwork always seems like is about to fall apart? So we go in this building where there is another epic Soviet lift. then let's take a look at a typical crane in a building site in this city. Notice that this crane has a carriage travelling across the arm of the crane as if the crane was a horizontal crane, except the arm's not actually horizontal, it's at an angle. This is so strange, I've never seen a crane like that before. Like, why do you have a carriage if the arm's at an angle? You're only meant to have a carriage if it's completely flat. And along to the next building, and something I've seen quite a bit in Ivano-Frankivsk is these really bad disabled ramps. Like, you're putting these ramps so people get like wheelchairs and buggies into the building, but it's so steep, it's just impractical to use. Like, I tried walking up it, my feet just slipped down the ramp because it's that steep. It would not be easy to get someone in a wheelchair up that ramp. And along into this little shopping centre, and this is what a typical shopping centre looks like in this part of Ukraine, considering that this is not a tourist destination, so this is off the beaten track for where most tourists go. So this is a very much non-tourist Ukrainian style shopping centre. And now we go into the next building. This building had 2 lifts, except one of the lifts has been completely removed. The other lift is a Soviet lift, which looks like it might have had a bit of work done on it, and it's got this weird door set up. And now along to the next building, which has an older lift modernised by Otis. And now we go along to Ivano-Frankivsk market. Let's go and explore this market. And into the next building. Sadly, this building doesn't have a lift, but one thing you can see in this building is a classic Soviet staircase. Notice how much more gentle the staircases are in Soviet places compared to back in England. And now along to the middle of the town centre. This is very much a typical Eastern European pre-Soviet historic town centre. So then, it's now night time and along I go to the outer town shopping centre. This outer town shopping centre is the only place in the entire city which has Western fast food such as McDonald's. The rest of the city, there's no Western food to be found because this city is very much a location that tourists do not go to. Also, this outer town shopping centre is the only place in the entire city which has a more Western styled supermarket. And this supermarket has live fish in it, which I find quite strange. So then, let's now go to some more out-of-town Soviet tower blocks. There's something very creepy about Soviet blocks at night time. Head into the first one, which has got a classic Soviet lift. And by the way, I'm not pressing this button to call a taxi, this is the lift button in the middle of the advert.
Wow. That's interesting, it's in levelling stage here, it won't start. The Soviet switch is already set, so we'll go into levelling. Now stop it, now back up 9. Oh, interesting, still won't go. Let's go down a bit more. Now stop, now heard that Soviet switch disconnect then, so now it goes up to 9. The Soviet switches are scraping. Some days it's going to knock that Soviet switch off as it passes it. So badly. Surely meant to have rollers on the Soviet switches. I reckon it's just metal scraping against metal.
And now we go to another one of the Soviet buildings next door, which also has a classic Soviet lift. That sounds like a breakdown in a moment. now along to the train station at night time. Let's take a look inside this train station and take a look at the classic Soviet main hall of this station. And at this station, there's no electronic screens anywhere to show the times of the train. The entire destination board of the trains is done using pieces of card slot into this board here. And that is all the information you get on what trains run at what time. So then, I now take the train back to Lviv. But this time, I take the overnight sleeper train. Now this is an experience. I've never done anything like this.
Номера прийому починаються з північної сторони вокзалу. Відправлення поїзда 21 година 55 хвилин. Проводиться посадка на швидкий поїзд 43-44 з полученням Івано-Франківськ, Київ, Чернігів. Потяг знаходиться на третій смугі від перону. Номера прийому.
Now, how would I describe the sleeper trains in Ukraine? Well, let's just say they're a bit like a bunker on wheels. Now, if you've seen my videos of the London deep level bunkers and seen how narrow and cramped in all of the beds are, now just imagine one of those deep level London bunkers, but on wheels, and there you'd have the Ukraine sleeper trains. Just like the London deep level bunkers, the beds are crammed in and everyone's really close together. And just like the deep level bunkers, all the beds are very short. I could only just lie flat out on these beds, and they are very, very narrow. Yeah, everyone is very cramped in on these trains. Now, as this was a 3-hour journey, just as a place for somewhere to relax for 3 hours, it was actually really good. But I'm saying on the basis that I wasn't actually intending to sleep on a train since it's only a 3-hour journey. Let's say, for example, I was going somewhere further, like Kiev, which would be a several-hour journey, where I'd actually want to use the train for sleeping. This would have been a fail, because there's no way I could have gone fully to sleep on this train. It simply wasn't comfortable enough. So if you're just wanting to relax and not actually sleep, yes, it's nice. But if you're actually trying to get a good night's sleep on a train, I don't think that's really possible. So then, here I'm partway through the journey, and I decided to have a walk around the train. I noticed that almost everyone on this train was actually not sleeping. I think the train was that bumpy that no one could really sleep. In fact, I only actually noticed one person who was actually asleep, and he looked like a real hardcore Soviet person. Let's now take a look at the toilet. And here I am arriving into Lviv. Another interesting thing about these trains is they're heated using coal fires. That is just so weird. I know this is an old train, like a really old train, but it's not that old. Why on earth would they have coal fires on this train? The whole train smells like it's a steam train. Let's take a look around Lviv station at night time.
Шановні пасажири, на 4-му пероні проводиться посадка на фірмовий поїзд.
So then, I now go along to the hotel where I slept in Lviv. And in Lviv, I stayed in a capsule hotel. And this hotel cost £5 per night. Now, where else can you find a hotel costing £5 a night? That is so cheap. And just take a look at his hotel. It's very space age looking. This is very much a Japanese style hotel. And it's got his little capsules, just big enough for someone to sleep in. So then, the next day, let's now go and do some rooftops in Lviv. And Lviv also has loads of really old looking cars everywhere you look. And along we go to a large out of town shopping centre. Now this shopping centre is big. This would be your equivalent of somewhere like Bluewater or Lakeside but in Ukraine. And this shopping centre is very interesting. Some parts of it actually are quite posh, but other parts of it look quite cheap and tacky for a major shopping centre like this. And along to the lift, but sadly the lifts here are very cheap and nasty. And in this shopping centre, some of the attempts they've made for disabled access are just bad. And just take a look at this really steep disabled ramp next to these steps. Like, not an easy task to get a wheelchair up that. That is really not disabled friendly. Considering this is the largest and most major shopping centre in Lviv, this spot here looks a bit tacky really for a shopping centre of this scale. But next to this section that looks tacky, you get other sections that look really nice and posh, such as this section of the glass floor, which is just really nice. And there's some more lifts here, but sadly these are more cheap and nasty lifts.
Slow. Oh my, this is bad.
Along to the wedding section of the shopping centre, where you get this part which is trying to look posh, and in some ways just about looks posh, but in other ways looks a bit tacky. And this here has to be the worst disabled ramp in the entire shopping centre. Look how large this staircase is, and look how they've done the disabled ramp. You just could not get a wheelchair up that. That's just ridiculous. So then, it's now night time, and along to a hotel in the centre of Lviv that's got a first generation eco disc. And near where the place I was staying, there's this weird gas pump. But a gas pump sounds like someone breathing really slowly, and I kept thinking it was people sleeping in the street or something. Now we go along to another rooftop in Lviv.
Then I'll do that.